Hi everyone, this is your favorite friend Jay or Jaylan Salah, as you formerly know her, film critic at Geek Vibes Nation and In Session Film. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing director Yana Alliata and actors Ryan Wuestewald, Hans Christopher, and Nikki DeParis about their new film Reeling, which is a film that kind of threw me on a ball of, many puzzles opening up. It was kind of a character study, kind of a psychological thriller in a way. So I want to congratulate Yana because this is a very interesting film. How did this idea come to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much. And I'm so glad that you resonated with it and that you enjoyed it. Yeah, the idea came to me as I am from Oahu. I grew up there and I was on my friend's birthday luau, and there was quite an uncomfortable moment that happened during a Hawaiian food blessing at the actual birthday luau. And from there, really, that was the seed of this idea for the rest of the story, which is fictional, right? The story of Ryan and his disability is fictional, but the environment and the place, I thought was such a beautiful and relaxing environment that could pair very well as a contrast to the lead character's point of view. And I like stories, I like family dramas and family mysteries. And I always knew and set out to do that, but it was a little bit later that I found memory to be a way and a story device to tell the story of the family mystery.
One of the things that I really like the most is that we start with a back shot of Ryan and we go with that for quite a while. I think it kind of adds to the mystery and kind of puts us in his perspective, seeing the world unfolding in front of him. Did you always have it in mind to kind of create that back shot, like iconic back shots from cinematic history, for example, where you don't see the character's face for a while?
Yeah, so actually I did. That was very intentional with the writing of the script, was the opening scene where he first returns to this place that he hasn't been in a while, and he's reintroducing himself to others, and they're introduced, former friends, and they're introducing themselves to him. And I really wanted to stay with Ryan in that moment, and I didn't want to see his face until the very end of that scene where he leaves those interactions behind him and he's on his way to his room. And that's the first time we see him in full frontal close up, and he reveals how he is feeling about everyone that he has just reintroduced himself to from his past. So I was really cautious and aware of when to go into that close up from the front. And that was after 90%, where we're just behind him and meeting the other people that he's also re-meeting for the first time, really.
Okay, so Ryan, I want to ask you, is it weird playing a character called Ryan and you're an actor called Ryan? Like, does this work in your mind as I would imagine it would be or not?
Um, I think initially it was a little bit, but you get used to it, and it's just, um, you were pretty intentional about casting and the names being the people's names that were actually in it. And I think that works. Because of the type of film it is, a character study that is sort of documentary style, but a fictional story. It makes it, as an actor, it does make it feel a little more like real, a little more less of a fictional narrative and more like, okay, we're kind of in this story as ourselves in a way. So it works in that way. It's really interesting.
So it's a very disturbing character. How did you get inside this disturbed mind while protecting yourself? Like, how do you blur the line as an actor, but also retain your individuality yourself while playing such a complex character?
It's a good question. I think a lot of it is finding ways in for myself that are uh, ways to tap into that sort of mentality without getting too caught up in it. But I like to work in a lot of different ways. Well, I think like touching the scar was a big um, way that helped me. It was very tangible to me. Being able to feel that was a way to get in. But yeah, in terms of like the psychology behind getting into roles that get quite emotionally deep and complex, it just takes time, and you want to nurture that role. you want to nurture the character and respect that process as much as you can. And so it is, it takes work, but it's rewarding in the end. Yeah.
Okay, so Hans, I felt like the difference between Ryan and John, it was like polarizing differences, even in the way they're tackled as masculine figures, you know what I mean? Like even as brothers, one was kind of like leading and kind of in charge, and always you can see him doing all the activities around this birthday. And then you see Ryan struggling to do the everyday activities. How did you tap into this complex kind of, I'm not saying antagonistic, but it was very polarizing relationship between the brothers, but at the same time, seeing the mindset of your character?
Yeah, I think it was John was, I think our whole family was incredibly competitive, and I think he was too, our whole lives. And, I think just that helplessness brought about so much anger in itself that we couldn't have that anymore. And I didn't want to treat him, any different than I had before. And so getting into that, I guess I drew a lot from myself and things in my life. I'm the oldest. I call it the burden of carrying the sword and the shield, right? When you're the oldest, you not that you do it, but you have this sense that you're supposed to do it, right? And then with that comes a lot of shame or guilt that you are or you aren't, and this weight that you put on yourself around it. And so I was able to draw a lot from that because I noticed how much it shows up in my real life as being the oldest and having, two younger siblings. And it really was able to create something in that worked well off of him and how angry I was that I didn't have that person to compete with anymore.
Okay, so Nikki, okay, Yana, do you want to add anything about the characters?
No, I love listening to my cast. So Nikki, go for it.
Okay, awesome. I was just asking because Nikki felt to me, Meg felt to me like she was grounding. She was the grounded person. She would always tell Ryan, like, it's okay, calm down, take a deep breath, or, just go rest. So I don't know, how did you see her? Because she felt to me like the most grounded character of all these competing men going out
Yeah.
of their way. Exactly. This is how I saw her. So I want to see her perspective playing her.
Yeah, I think that Meg is an interesting character because she has this softness to her, but she's also really strong to be able to take on the role that she's taking in Ryan's life. And I think that she's had to take on responsibility that obviously she wasn't expecting to take on, especially for her older brother. And yeah, I think that she is kind of a pseudo parental figure, and she's had to figure out how to, navigate being his sister, but also having to look after him, make sure he's okay, but also, you know, trying to make him feel normal and welcome and a part of this life that he, forgot.
Seeing how normal everyone was on the film, it felt like a real family. Like the scenes were so natural. It was amazing. All these takes and all these scenes and all these activities occurring. I don't know, how do you, as a director, Yana, create this environment for your actors to just freely go and maybe improvise a little bit some of the scenes? How was it? How did you create this environment for people to just let loose and be themselves and create like this was a family? It was like watching a home video of a family, actually.
Yeah, so that was on day one in the script. That was day one of the inception of the entire story. I knew that the first and foremost, most important thing was to capture, people and a place that I love so dearly in the authentic way. And I happen to have friends, which are the non-professional actors in the film, who are really wonderful and delightful and great personalities. And like, I just love being around them. And I've always joked with them for so long about like, I want to make you a star. And like, I want you to be in my movie. And then I was like, all right, I'm giving you guys this opportunity. Let's go. And I think there's something really beautiful and mesmerizing of like, my three friends that are at the emu pit, who are the first guys that Ryan's character meets. It's like, those are really great guy friends of mine. And I think they're just the kind of the pinnacle of the Hawaii lifestyle. And at least the Hawaii that I know and love. And so it's really important for me to capture that. And they are best friends in real life, you know? And one of my brother loves tarot cards, for example, and he has a really critical scene in the tarot card reading scene with Ryan. Like that's him improvising a real tarot card reading with Ryan before they get into the scripted dialogue. So very much like I wrote the script kind of after I casted the movie in a way. Like the last person that I really casted in the lead role was Hans, because I was looking for that John character, but everyone else I knew in my mind who was casted when I set out to write the script. So that's a really big part of creating that environment. And McKenna, for example, like she knows Nick really well, and Galen and Zach and all of those other the supporting characters in the film. So I just knew that you really need them to be friends and to be connected with one another for us to pull this off. And that's what I wanted to share with the world and bring to light. So I'm glad that I succeeded in the authenticity for that specifically, especially when telling a story in Hawaii.
So I want to ask all of you, which was the most difficult scene to shoot? Even if it was like a normal scene to me as a viewer, but something that you found difficult.
Logistically, that took a while.
The kitchen scene, I'm sorry, I remember people actively being upset with me. I was upset with myself. That was the first and only scene where I could not place the camera as a director, which is like funny to admit, right? But I said, wow, all of the walls are white and like the camera can't fit in here. So we need my camera operator, the director of photography, who's 6'6", could not physically fit in that kitchen with the other actors and move camera. So he then needed his operator to hold that camera for him and operate for him in that scene. And then I was outside of the kitchen trying to call shots inside of the kitchen. And I remember being frustrated with myself. And then I believe some of the actors were frustrated with me as well, which I'll take. So, you know, but that was also like a scene we did on day one of shoot. And I was just kind of, it's a miracle that that scene worked. And even in the editing room, I still like really struggled with piecing that together from a directing point of view. So anyway, I just remember that was like very challenging on set, but I don't know if you guys have other scenes that.
I think the first scene too was, you know, we had to rehearse that a lot. That was another like kind of theatrical moment, a really long take. I mean, it wasn't difficult in the sense that like it wasn't enjoyable, but it was logistically difficult to get the timing right. Like I'm meeting Ryan and then I have to go into the house with him, and then I'm like going off another way and I have to come around at exactly the right time with the cooler. And there was just a lot of like rhythm stuff that we had to figure out for that, but it was fun. Difficult but fun.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting for Hans and Ryan to give me something I don't expect, because that seems difficult.
No, there's a moment of pretty high tension and emotional tension in the film that was another long take. So for me, I remember that being difficult to repeat time and time again, because it's not just having to get into an emotional state and do that, but also doing a very long take that leads up to a moment. It becomes more of a marathon. And it was different. Yeah, there's just a moment. Yeah, that was.
But not the eulogy scene. I don't want to spoil, but not that scene, because that scene was, the camera was kind of spinning between all the actors and it felt like my head was going to explode. Was that scene as difficult as I saw it? Because it really made my head spin around.
Yeah, no, I know. I've actually heard that from a few people. That was not from a camera point of view. We at first initially brought out our second camera, which we didn't end up using. It was just a single cam shoot. But at first I thought, I want to capture all these reactions in real time. So let's have the two operators back to back within that circle. And then it was like too clunky and annoying. And then obviously my DP, who is like film obsessed and a film expert was also, which we didn't shoot on film, but he just has the mentality of, you know, single cam. So we just went back to the single cam, and no, that was not really, anytime you're shooting an exterior scene, the big challenge is the sunlight and the positioning of the sun. So that's also why steady long takes and continuous long takes are really helpful in that moment, and why we did circle around without cutting camera, because, you know, the sun will move if we reposition for standard coverage or what have you. If we position for another angle, the sun will move and we will go into nighttime. So but yeah, that one was not as challenging as it made you feel. I'm sorry if it made you feel
In a
bit...
good way. I promise, in a good way. Really,
no,
it was very, yes, it was very nerve-wracking, but in a good way.
I have one that you guys probably don't know this, but the scene where the dog's on the table and everyone is around, that one was challenging in a way because so many of the actors there are telling real stories of real fishing things, and it was so immersive and alive that I felt like, you know, you had to get into the pocket of bringing the story into it just at the right place, because I wanted to make sure it stayed and remained in that authentic kind of tone. So for me, the stories were so alive and so real that it was challenging and kind of intimidating to be like, I want to make sure it stays in this world. So that was something that it was definitely, I didn't expect it to be that way, but as I'm in this and hearing the stories and seeing it happen, I'm like, man, this is so great. You know, and I'm like, this better be the same way.
Definitely would have never expected that. Thank you all so much. This was a great conversation. I really love talking to you. I really love the film.
Yeah, thank you so
Thank
much.
you
We
so
love
much.
talking to you.